Hello, and welcome to the South Coast Artists Index, where artists, performers, and writers, as well as curators, directors, and supporters, anyone with ties to the creative community, drops by to introduce themselves to you. We'll talk about their beginnings, their vision, their passion, and so much more. The South Coast Artists Index podcast is brought to you in part by Heavenly Spirits, who invites you to celebrate the art of life and creative communities everywhere.
Hi, this is Ron Fortier with another episode of the South Coast Artists Index podcast. And we do have special guests for lots of reasons. And we'll get into that as soon as they introduce themselves and spell their names for us.
Yes, I am Eden Soares, first name Eden, last name Soares. I also have a middle initial, Nelson Brandao, which is my mother's maiden name. And I am a muralist, graphic designer, illustrator, and of service to the public.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Do people ask you, wow, I never heard Eden as a first name?
Yeah, I've always been shy with that name because it was so different growing up.
Hey, Ronald's no picnic either.
So I've always gotten the name Eddie. Eddie was given to me by my godmother. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing a letter from her when I was young, and it said Dedi. Actually, they spelled it D-E-D-Y, Dedi.
Okay.
So when I came to the United States, I was 4 years old, being brought up. All my family members call me Eddie, or they know me for Eden, but I didn't embrace it until junior high school, where the name, a girl liked me and she put my name on her shirt. And I still don't know who it was because everyone that known me from back in the days called me Eddie. So from high school on, then I embraced the name. I liked it and got comfortable with it. So anyone that calls me Eddie is a little further
from
back
way
in
back,
history.
From way back. So you were born in Cape Verde?
No, I was actually born in Rotterdam, Netherlands.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, my father was born in Cape Verde, and my mom was born in Guinea-Bissau. My father worked on a naval ship, so he was always traveling. So we ended up docking in Holland, where for a couple of years, where we had my oldest sister, and then I was born 11 months later, and then we moved to Lisbon, Portugal. My sister was born there, and then we moved to the United States when I was 4 years old, and then my younger sister was born in the United States. So we're kind of like an international family.
Wow, I'd say. Yeah, I was telling Maya that now Maya is your partner, life partner.
Yes.
I was telling Maya, Soares. My tia Maria was Soares. She was from San Miguel. It's funny because all of the uncles on my grandmother's side, my mother's side, were they all married island women. It was just kind of weird, but there's a bunch of stories to go with that. So one of the first things when I saw your work, I was wondering, what to call you, because it's gotten confusing. I had this conversation with Lindsay Misch from DATMA. They've backed off of using urban art because you've got certain people that right away, as soon as they hear urban, they shut their brain off, or their brain goes someplace it shouldn't be going. Mm-hmm. Public art means what? Art that's in the public, and that's really nothing new, because if you go to Klasky Park, they've got statues that have been there forever. Mm-hmm. That's public art.
Yep.
There was graffiti, but I guess that's no longer a proper term, because graffiti's not just tagging, it's a bombing. It's really no different now than easel painting, right?
Yeah, it's something humans have always been doing. They kind of bring it back as to even the days of hieroglyphics, of just wanting to express yourself as a human on a surface, leave your mark. We always want to leave our mark some way, in some fashion. So it's always been a custom, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you've got somebody who's like riddled with lice and fleas, supposedly living in a cave, supposedly with animal skins, for clothing, and they're like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna make something with handprints on this cave wall because it's like kind of dull in here."
Yeah, and it was the only way people would be like, "Oh, this guy was here. He left his mark."
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So, you're speaking of how it's applied. Are you different than most of the known? What are we going to call you? A muralist?
I guess artist fits well.
Artist,
I mean,
yeah.
I know artist has different meanings,
Right.
but I have a lot of different outlets, or should I say, mediums when it comes to art. It normally started out as an illustrator, illustrating, and then it developed into digital art, where I was taking my illustrations and scanning them, importing them into the computer, and that was a whole nother beautiful world to me. Just having endless amounts of colors and edits. So,
Yeah.
and then it just developed from digital art to experimenting with hand brush paintings and just picking up a brush and actually applying color and getting familiar with it. So I haven't ventured off too much into different mediums, but I am so excited to get started as soon as I can stop freelancing.
Yeah. Now, your work is very unique in my estimation. I mean,
Thank you.
I've been rattling around for a while. Your work is definitely your signature. And when people go to art school for some weird reason and no one ever, poked them to do so, everybody wants a style, I guess, because you learn so much art history and then you're like miserable because I don't have a style, a signature style or something.
That's true, yeah.
How did yours evolve?
Mine evolved into so many different, it's like roots of a tree. When I was first enticed with the opportunity at the age of 13 from a cousin of mine to hand draw a flyer for an event, I was like, okay, cool. He's like, yeah, and I'll pay you for it too. I was like, really?
I can make money doing this.
Exactly. So I was so excited when I received that $20 for just illustrating. I was hooked at that point. And since then, I've always focused on getting work or people hearing about me doing work, so they recommend me, and I've always been approached with different projects and different ideas from people that were requesting some sort of design requests. So I stepped myself up to the challenge to say, hey, if it has something to do with art and this person is willing to pay me, I will figure it out. So I've developed a lot of different styles from so many different customers and clients and projects that I work with. But my roots before I started working with clients was graffiti. Graffiti started for me at the age of around 11 years old, when I was introduced to it from my cousin. Before that, I was just doodling, just constantly doodling, just not coming home and watching a cartoon, just doodling. I mean, of course, I had my Saturday morning cartoons. That's just a given. And wrestling back in the days.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just mostly art and just illustrations. When I learned about graffiti, I was excited. Like, oh, you mean we can alter letters and make them look fancy and put thickness to them and outlines, and I was just fascinated with the topic of lettering and graffiti and the different styles that were being showcased back at that time. But it still develops, and it caught my attention again in the late 1999s when I was in New York. when I saw it in a 3D form, because two-dimensional graffiti was always around for quite some time. But when I saw it in a 3D form, blew my mind again. It's just the concept of light and having shadow hit it properly so it actually looks realistic was another challenge.
Yeah.
So I've always loved the art of graffiti, but I'm versatile when it comes to what I can do with my art.
Yeah, it's funny when you mentioned that 3D. The only one that I'm aware of is Portuguese, Vils, who works with a freaking jackhammer on buildings, and it is just absolutely amazing what this guy does. And I'm wondering if anybody, and I'm sure they may have done a time lapse. Strap down that camera and just let it time lapse as the sun moves in the sky. The effects on that thing has got to be phenomenal.
I can imagine.
And then going back to your discoveries, do you think that the school systems do enough? I'm trying to choose my words carefully. Do enough when it comes down to the visual and performing arts?
I don't think so. I mean, I didn't see art in the school systems until I reached Kearney Academy, in which the grade that I was in Kearney was the 5th grade. So it took a while. So still in my elementary days, the earlier grades, I don't recall seeing art in the hallways or much of a display of it other than what the students were producing.
Yeah.
But I agree.
Do you think it would change things for the better if they introduced art at an early age? Just like with language. Why do they wait until you're in high school to teach you French, Portuguese, Spanish, German? I mean,
exactly.
It's bizarre.
It goes the same with
your brain's already like all, in a different place.
Yeah, our brains are wired to be brought up with those natural abilities of just art and music and sound and vibrations and frequencies. Yeah, these are the things that we resonate with internally. So, but to not include it in our systems, especially at the younger age, it just doesn't make sense.
Have you ever paid attention to, been exposed to, for example, the school system in Cape Verde, or in the Netherlands, or in any of your travels? I mean, have you noticed, or sometimes you're not even looking, you go, whoa, we don't have that.
Yes, I took a trip with the students at UMass Dartmouth. They do a yearly orphanage visit where they contribute medical supplies and school supplies. So one year I decided to, go along with them with the trip and offer my art to the orphanages. So I remember when I was out there, we did some tours to the local schools.
Where was this now?
This was in São Vicente, Cape Verde.
São Vicente, okay.
Yeah. And I was blown away by, what they were working with, the bare minimum. It's what we would see our school systems, maybe what it looked like 20 years ago. It was just, it wasn't in the best condition. I know there are better schools out there. It's just the ones that we were visiting at the time were shocking at the time to me, and I'm sure a lot of the people that were on the trip. So it's amazing to see that, but it gives us such a sense of clarity of what we have. Once you come back, you realize the opportunities that are right in front of you, and you got to step up and do something about it, especially when you see it in a whole other perspective.
Yeah, and with that in mind too, speaking of Africa, black art came to the forefront now. I guess it's only been 5-6 years. It hasn't been. I don't even think it's been 10 years yet. And when it first started bubbling up, actually, it really got a shot. That's not a good term. It really got a boost because of George Floyd and BLM. And I was always a little leery of it because I remember when I was in graduate school when Indian art, as they referred to it, which is American Indian art, which now has been evolved to more properly First Nation art or indigenous art. And these guys, like Fritz Schollner was one of them, I mean, they made a lot of money very, very quickly, and they were celebrities, and then, poof, name me an indigenous American artist.
They couldn't.
You couldn't.
Wow.
So now, I don't know if you've noticed that there's been a transition in black art. The subject matter's changed quite a bit. You've got, Candy Wiley, you've got, from Next Haven, from New London, he's a Yale graduate. Titus Kaphar. Okay. These guys are giants.
Yes.
And then you have all the upcoming artists who are of African descent. But then I've been seeing in Portugal specifically, because my gallery in Portugal in Figueira da Foz, Rui, the owner of that gallery, he's in partnership with his father. His father has one in further south, and a lot of the African art is absolutely mind-blowing because of not just the talent and the power of the work, but because they are working with absolutely nothing. And I don't know if it's by choice or if it's by circumstance. And at the same time, I think there's been such an influx of Africans, Nigerians primarily, coming into the United States, that's changing that whole. It wouldn't it be great when we get to the point that there'll be no first black anything.
Yeah.
That we don't have to be categorized by our color, by our gender, by our sexual preference. I mean, we're all artists, Mm-hmm. So, tell me about the and those of you listening, you'll be able to see these pieces of work. The Cesar Evora piece, which is on the yet to be opened, right? The Cape
Yes.
Verdean Cultural is it center or
Center?
Center?
Yes.
Okay, because you have another Cape Verdean Cultural Museum. I think it's up towards the Cape.
Yes, that's one. That's
Right,
true.
those guys are really like rocking and rolling, and then you've got the one in Pawtucket, and then
one in Rhode Island,
everybody
yeah.
is, How did you get your head wrapped around Cesar Evora, other than just listening to her voice, which is like, damn.
Yeah, she's an amazing artist, a musician, performing barefoot. She just has like the soul and essence of Africa, not even Cape Verde. It's just her Morna style of singing.
Yeah.
It's been Grammy nominated. She got an award. I think
she
got
did.
an award.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I believe
so
she did get a Grammy. Yeah,
she's one of the first Cape Verdean artists to reach that much success in the music industry.
Right.
So we always looked up to her for motivation. And this was actually the second concept I presented for the Cape Verdean Association. But the idea of using Cesaria, I realized living in New Bedford, I didn't see any representation of her. And being that she has such prominent history and being known in the community, I wanted to highlight her and also show the culture of Cape Verde, what we normally do, our traditions. In the mural, you'll see on the right-hand side is just like the music, the musicians, us dancing and just enjoying the traditional sounds that we created and made and grooved and had fun with. And on the left portion of the mural is more of the day-to-day routines that most Cape Verdeans were doing in the islands, just surviving off of the land and the sea for fishing, and just providing for their family and, just doing what they got to do, which is in most places. But I just wanted to capture that with the whole Cape Verdean new updated flag in the background as a backdrop. So I think that first mural was my first public large-scale mural in quite some time in New Bedford. So since that point, I've been getting more mural projects. But I've just been known in the community lately only for my murals. But like I shared earlier, I've been doing graphic design for over 35 years, so I've done a lot. Actually, there's one printout of a lot of logos and brandings on one page. Those are some of the local logos that I've done around New Bedford. Some of them might look familiar.
Yep, I see it. Yep.
Yeah.
Holy moly, that's quite a portfolio on one sheet. One side is monochromatic blue, the left side, and the right side is monochromatic green, which is really interesting because it pops her. I mean, she's pretty much what you say full color. I'm interested in what drove you to do that.
I have a sense of symmetry and balance in some of my designs, so I wanted to have her the highlight and the focus point of and keeping her in color. And actually, where she's known for is her voice and what comes out of her voice. And right below her chin is the islands of Cape Verde. It's kind of hidden in there.
Yeah, I can see that between the microphone, her chin, and the top of the above her fingers as she has her hand turned and partially fisted.
Yeah. So I wanted to, obviously give her the most respect and attention that I can on this, but not overshadowing.
She was the, to use that kind of contrast, the Amalia Rodriguez of Cape Verde.
It's true, yeah.
And I wanted to see her. She came to the Zeitarium.
Oh my goodness!
I did get to see Marisa, but I would have loved to. And my mom's going to be 98 in September, and she had a lot of Cape Verdean friends, and so the little that I know, I was infused with growing up as a child, and she was a fadista as well. So I try to talk to her about it now, and she's like, "That's all in the past," because she's just sort of bummed out that she had to walk away from it, and so on and so forth. But bringing it back to Marisa and Cesar Ivor, when they did that duet, it's kind of interesting because they're both Africans, and a lot of people don't realize that. Marisa's from Angola, and I think that's just kind of cool. So, Third Eye, you're involved with Third Eye.
Yes, I'm a team member of Third Eye.
Okay.
Yep.
Could you tell us a little bit about that as well? Because that has evolved. Let's say it's been a bit of from an outsider's point of view, meaning not being involved in it. It was like a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, I can relate because I started back in Third Eye when it first started.
Was it with Ben Gilbard?
Ben Gilbard. This was like 1999, around 2000. Around that time, I remember doing the logo for the Third Eye Unlimited, and he had a show called Put Out the Word. I don't know if you remember. He showcased a lot of great.
The Buttonwood Park. That was the big.
The Third Eye Open.
The Third Eye Open.
Yep.
Yeah.
What they do is annually.
Right.
I did the flyers and T-shirts for that event for I think the first few years.
Right.
It's evolved. Different people took over management, especially when Ben moved back to California.
Right.
Then everything kind of changed and transitioned, but it kept afloat. It has its rocky roads, but now it's got its building on Union Street, 230 Union Street, and it's coming along. Of course, they have their Third Eye Opens every year. It's not at Buttonwood Park like it used to be. It's now that's the Custom House Square downtown New Bedford. So it's a smaller scale, but we still have the whole essence of the graffiti, live graffiti art, the performances, the DJs, the dancers. So it's an exciting time for the whole family to come out.
It's kind of an interesting thread as well, and then historically, as to how people perceived hip hop. But I want to go back to what I was asking you before about our schools doing enough for kids, for visual and performing arts, and Third Eye's been doing that, giving them an outlet. And I wonder how many, and I use the term kids because I'm an old guy, but
Still
so
kid at heart.
anybody under 30 is a kid,
That's true.
And, but how many kids, individuals have gone on into a life in the creative arts and creative communities around the world, around the country, in the city, around the country, because of Third Eye gave them that outlet. Because I still believe we really need, I keep pushing this in all the podcasts. I'd love to see the Orpheum Theater transformed into a junior, senior visual and performing arts high school.
That would be nice.
Because we've got New Bedford High, which is referred to as a comprehensive school, and then we have the vocational school. But we have this huge gap in the middle. And for some reason, maybe because it's computers and screens and so on and so forth, but children are more visually oriented now than they've ever been.
Yeah, it's almost pushed that way.
Exactly. So, and also there's a lot of performance art that they get almost instantly on their phones. But with that in mind, a lot of things have changed too with the acceptance of it, because at one time it was like, well, it was kind of segregated.
Yeah, it definitely was.
And then you had the suburban cul-de-sac white kids who got involved in it because they just liked the culture. And talk to us about this stew and I mean stew in a good way. This things have evolved, right?
Oh yeah, they've come a long way. Just it's as long as we kept doing what we love to do, expressing ourselves, and there's so many elements of hip hop, kept it going. The break dancing has never stopped since day one. It's developed into it's almost, I don't understand why it's not in the Olympics.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I think I just read someplace that it has been accepted.
Really?
Yes, in the next one. Yeah.
About time.
Yeah.
No, because it is a sport that's physically challenging. I remember seeing a lot of the floor exercise routines that they would pick up some of the ideas of the moves that the breakdancers were doing. I'm like, I've seen that before.
Right.
And then even from the DJ, where it's developed into the turntable being an actual instrument. For the ones that still use the vinyl turntable where you got to move with your fingers, not the digital one. I've seen DJs create beats from songs that you would never know because you never get to hear it. They're just sampling a drum and a snare, and they're making their own beat out of it. And it's just amazing. I've sat in the studio recording DJs doing this live in person in New York and just blown away. Like I said, the graffiti, the MCing, I mean, the rapping is just, it's been a lot. It's been through that. It's been the one element has gotten a lot of misrepresentation because it's used because it's so powerful. The power of words and sound.
There's a lot of anger.
Oh yeah, but it's all about, where we focus our attention on, because there are lots and lots of artists, and I happen to have a fonding to this type of artist, which they label as underground artists, which is something that's not someone who is not being played on the normal public access radio stations. This is something that you have to find.
It's real street art. It's real stuff that's coming up.
And it was much harder back in the days before, the internet came out and Spotify, where you can just find things. It was tough to find that type of sound and that type of music. I remember me and my cousin, we would be so excited to get a mixtape from New York, or he came back from New York and he recorded some songs from DJ Red Alert. These are the legendary DJs still alive today, still doing their thing. It's evolved into so many different levels. I mean, what the public normally sees are in disgust because of what they hear and see in the videos. But you got to understand, this is what the powers that be want to push. That's what they want to showcase. So
That's
it makes us look like that's all
going
you
on.
guys can do. No, there is so much more, but it's not being promoted or accessed. You have to find it. You have to dig for it. That's why they call it underground. But when you do, there's endless amounts of artists and groups and bands and cliques that are just, I don't want to use the certain term, the proper term, that are doing amazing and successfully being super gifted with their craft as a rhymer, as someone that can just freestyle. Freestyling is even more difficult because there is nothing written down. It's just what you can think of at the moment. And it has to be sharp, it has to be clever, it has to be witty, and it has to flow. It's
like Congresswoman Jasmine. I mean, that was like, you know.
It just keeps coming, yeah.
Exactly. But, you know, as you're speaking, like, and I don't want to say that rapping has legitimized poetry, but it has brought it back because they're kind of growing up together. You have slams that have a little of this, a little of that, and that's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing when you can blend these disciplines, these outlooks, these experiences and such. And then from the little I know, you know, there's East Coast, West Coast, and there's Atlanta, which is all by itself.
Down south, yeah.
But it really, and I equate this with cooking, with culinary. Again, you know, my mother has had a profound impact on me in lots of ways. But for example, people, Freestones used to be known for their French onion soup, and people go on and on and on about French onion soup and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, it's such a fancy thing, right? And it's like, okay, do you think a rich person came up with that idea? Because, you know, if there's nothing around, all you got is onions and a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Okay, you're going to make something out of it, right? And all these foods that have come up, and now they're to the white tablecloth, you know, the fancy restaurants.
Yeah.
Those all started off in the poorest section.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing like with hip hop. I mean, you got nothing, and you make something out of it. And then one final example, because it's like all running through my head. I remember the first time I heard the SO Steel Band. I didn't even know what a steel band was. And I'm saying, then I realized that's made out of oil drums? Who does that?
Right.
So there's this drive that's,
Unstoppable.
It's unstoppable. And part of our mission here at the Artist Index, it's a little bit of a plug here, is that we want to document everybody that's involved in the arts. I mean, across the board. You know, everybody is bringing their stones to the stone soup for everybody to benefit from. So now with Third Eye Blind, where is it going? And how are you affiliated with it? I mean, other than by relationship, actually, no, both, right? I mean, you're both involved. Both you, Maya, Jay Livermento, and you are both involved in it heavily. Okay, so if I gave you the magic wand and said, what would you guys do?
I mean, I think we can just keep continuing doing what we're doing at a larger scale. You know, maybe bringing down some artists, maybe it being at a bigger venue, working with bigger vendors and bigger brands, and just bringing the community together. I think you've already seen the impact that the music and the arts and the workshops have done with the community. So imagine that at a larger scale. It benefits everyone.
Let me ask a question. And to use the old term, has anybody gotten out of here? Meaning they rose up with their talent, whatever it was, and they made it out of here. Are there any names? Because I can't bring any to mind right now. I know there was one young woman that was on America's Got Talent, I think.
Yeah, Samantha.
Yeah, Samantha, that's right,
Yep.
yeah.
There is a lot of artists in New Bedford in the works of getting to that status. The ones that come to mind is like Dwayne The Rock someone that is from New Bedford, a native, which is a producer, and went out to California and worked in the music industry, and now he's been working with a lot of big names, and now he's putting together his own show that's going to be aired on public shows. So you also have Mikey Montero, which is a native of New Bedford and moved out to California with the same music background, and he went on tour with some of the biggest names in the music industry, R&B and jazz and hip hop. So and he's actually back in New Bedford. He has a building, the old
Hamel, Wexler, Allen, and Collins.
Exactly,
Okay,
yeah.
I met him at the grant ceremony when they all tell us we're getting a check, right? And then you mentioned jazz. I mean, we have Dave Reese, Reese. And we laugh at that, he and I. He's 86 years old, and he is heading up our first ever podcast series, a 10 episode podcast series on jazz.
Nice.
I mean, this man lived that period. I mean, he grew up with all these people in the family and people that came to New Bedford and stayed with his family, and it's just phenomenal. And just in the Cape Verdean community alone, it's a mine shaft that is so deep. It's you have performing artists, music, obviously. Photographers seems to be another category that's like absolutely huge, and I might be missing a couple because I just don't know. But wow, it's so incredible. And then my God rest her soul, she was my old neighbor when I lived in New Bedford. She was the aunt to the Tavares clan, the Antunes and and to see the kids already, coming up. It was like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
So back, John Bullard's mother, I think it was John Bullard, founder of really his family got the whole New Bedford historical thing. It's not just any place, because of the architecture and the history and so on and so forth. But with the communities that we have here, this is not just any place. This is just like jaw drop. I tell people, my wife's from Detroit, and we do this Zoom thing for the Detroit Fine Arts Breakfast Club, and I start telling them about certain things. They're like, "What?" It's like a mini Detroit. There's just so much here.
So much history. Yeah, I remember when I was working on the project for the Cape Verdean Band Club. I was working with an artist, Adrian Teal.
Yes.
And he gave me so many history lessons and stories of New Bedford, and I was in amazement because there's a lot that I still don't know about. I had my head in my services for so long and so many years that I lost track of a lot of other things. But he filled me in on the history and the so many amazing things there, especially like that mural that's down next to the it's next to Custom House Square.
Oh, the jazz mural. That one, no?
Is it the jazz mural? It's the one.
Or is the one on Freestone's?
On the Freestone's.
Yeah, that was a bidded out.
The regiment,
the 54th Massachusetts. That's like something you would see in the State House, House.
Exactly.
Inside, right?
Yeah, amazing.
A fresco versus, a mural kind of thing. Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, so.
And that was probably one of the first, actually, across the parking lot on the Carter's building, was probably one of the first sanctioned murals.
That's true. Yeah.
The one I've been looking for is during the riots on Kempton Street. It's somewhere near that grocery store that was left untouched. There was a couple of artists who did 3 panels, like probably 4x8 sheets. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and I forgot who the third individual was. I would love to find photographs of that, or somebody have those in their basement.
It was
in
right
their
on
attic.
the corner, right?
It was right on the corner, exactly. You know, is that market was left pretty
I think
much.
it was Rosa Parks, right? Rosa Parks was it?
That's right. I think you're right. I'd love to be able to find that. Why? Because
Yeah, that's
you know,
that's history.
It's a footprint.
Yeah.
It's a footprint, and that's really, really,
I
really
agree.
super important. What's next for you?
I'm actually currently working on a mural at the remember the Lebads, the old Lebads? Then used to be.
Oh, yeah, they went through that
Brock
bar
Ave.
rescue, and then I guess that they
Yeah.
they needed another rescue.
Yeah,
I
so-
shouldn't laugh. I mean, you know,
Because it's funny because I did the branding for the 3 C's.
right.
And then a few months later, it was, I think, new owners bought the building. Because the first owners were, not the first, but the
Yeah.
previous ones were leasing.
Yeah.
So they bought the building, so now they have more control. They
Right.
did a whole revamp of the inside on the different floors. They redid the kitchen, so the food is back. The menus is amazing. It's more family orientated. The whole theme of nautical is set perfectly in there. And I happened to be walking down the street with my twins on our way to the playground. And they were like, "Oh, just the man I need to see." I was like, "What is it?" He's like, "We need a mural over here." I was like, "Okay, cool." They was in the process of rebranding. They sent me what they had for an existing logo, so I cleaned up their logo. They put that on the front sign. It's the staff's shirts that everyone wears
Right.
on the inside. But they also had me doing on the exterior of the building their branding of their lighthouse, and they had actually. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's
I haven't
actually.
been down there in ages. to
Yeah,
tell you the truth. I went to St. Anne's School,
Oh, right down there.
which is now how do they call that, a public safety?
Yeah,
whatever the heck it is. They tore down the church, they tore down the school, they tore down everything.
Yeah.
And when we moved there from the north end, because I live next to Immaculate Conception on Earl Street, when we moved down to Mott Street, the south end was a very heavy French Canadian thing. In fact, the city councilman, Saulnier, I think his last name was, he was almost like the mayor of the south end, not just a city councilman, because it was just nothing but mills there. You know, they had a lot of mills because
Remember the mills,
you
yeah.
need to be next to the water because of the humidity, so on and so forth. But when you went past past Hazelwood Park, it was almost like parts of Dartmouth. There was there was the Poor Farm, and it was like the beaches, but it was undeveloped, so to speak.
Oh.
It was still, I have to use the word wild.
Okay.
And the other thing too is, like, people don't realize that a lot of our consciousness and a lot of our behaviors, well, I can't say because I don't live in New Bedford anymore. After all those years, I've been living in Fairhaven since I got back from Portugal. But it's a peninsula. It's like a long finger, and so a peninsula mentality, an island mentality, a crossroads mentality, they're all different mentalities. So you really want to go down to the south end to get something, because it's not something you're going to pass by.
Exactly.
You know, it's either you're going to pass by something on your, if you live in the south end, you're going by to something else, but you got to, that's why people said the Kilburn Mills would never make it, because, you know, the art studios there, because who's going to go down there?
Well, you have the beach, so
I mean,
people are gonna
it's like,
pass by.
Yeah, people think of the craziest things, you know.
Yeah.
So I've got to go take a drive down there and check it out, because it's so different. I mean, I remember all kinds of things down there. There used to be so many great places to go to eat. I mean, they were all small. It was like another little world all by
That's
itself.
true,
It wasn't
yeah.
even, you know, like the same thing in the north of New Bedford.
Yeah.
Sassaquin,
Yeah.
that's another world altogether. They had like
That's
still
true.
farms and everything up there, right? So you're going to be continuing on doing your murals, but what's your prize?
My prize would be to get to the point of my freelancing has come to a stop, and I want to see what I'm capable of doing as an artist, staring at a blank canvas. What ideas I can come up with, you know, because I do have a lot of ideas and talents that I've demonstrated here, but when it's funny because I've been asked this a couple of times where they're like, Eden, we're doing an event or a workshop. Bring down something that you want to contribute or showcase that you did. I was like, I really don't have anything. They was like, what are you talking about? I was like, everything that I have is just showcasing what I've done for other people of what I've been of service of. I don't have anything personally that I express through art.
I understand that. I was in advertising for 40 years. I mean,
Yeah.
I sold socks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You did it all.
Yeah, you did it all.
Pretty
Yeah.
much except what you wanted to do.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I'm hoping to get to that point where I can explore myself and see what I'm capable of doing, because I don't want to do the same thing that I've been doing with the not even a hairbrush. I just want to have a different approach.
And probably push yourself. Because that's another thing, too. Working in studio, you don't really have anybody watching what you're doing. I mean, you know, you're outside and you're paying, and you got people walking by and traffic and so on and so forth, and that's a challenge in itself. You got to shut your brain off and ignore them, and you know, there's all those other things. But when you're in studio and you know that nobody's going to come by and you know you're going to read a face like, what the hell's that? You can push yourself to the limit. A wise woman once asked me, did I want to be sustained or did I want to be supported by my art? And I said, well, why can't I have both? She says, it just doesn't work that way. You got to pick one. And I've heard so many people with similar stories. And you know what? When you start doing it because that's what you want to do, you don't have, you know, it's not even what I call bread and butter art, where you're doing it to sell, to live, so you could do your art. When you start doing that, things start to click, and it's a weird kind of thing. I've got to get back into that. They want me to get a new phone because it's not doing. Yeah, I mean, it's a 10.
Clearly.
It's a 10 for God's sakes. I mean, you know, and all these funky things happen. Like it'll just start doing something all by itself. Like you know, looking around, it's like, I got to get the Sage.
Yeah, it's like you're almost forced to try to upgrade. Like, I've been taking good care of it. It's working great.
Exactly,
No,
exactly. So that's the kind of thing. It's like to do it from your own soul, and unfortunately, one of the things that's been vexing me for quite a long time, especially with people of my generation. I wonder what the percentage of unsold work is for painters. Because when they pass, they leave their families with what? A storage unit full, a trailer truck full. What happens to this stuff? Does it go on the curb for trash day in a barn fire? Does it go in a dumpster? Does it end up at Savers?
Yeah, unless you have some great supporters or major fans that want to continue to push your work, then it's going to sit in some shelter.
See, you just touched on something, on community. None of us gets anywhere without somebody holding that door open for us or pointing to the door or doing that.
That's true.
And that's what we need more in the communities for kids who, well, I didn't grow up with everything. I had white privilege, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But to know some, conheces in Portuguese. Who do you know? Because you can't do pedidos without conhecidos, right? You can't ask if you don't know who to ask. And we need more of that. And I think Third Eye's been doing a phenomenal thing. And what I love also too is what's going on with the Cape Verdean community is like really, really coalescing and having their own museum or center. And then I'm looking at the Cape Verdean Ultramarine Band Club and the Ultramarine, right?
Yeah.
Most people don't know what that means. We still have a few minutes. Yeah. Could you explain Ultramarine?
To my knowledge, I guess it was a lot of the native people that were musical artists at the same time, but still trying to provide for their family, and they worked in the down by the docks with in the ships. So I'm guessing ultramarine, as that's just my guess. I could be totally wrong.
I think it's more of a Luso term because the Portuguese are also referred to as Luso.
That's true. Yeah.
And ultramar is because they were everywhere. Everywhere. I remember my stepmother, one of her biggest dreams was when she finally convinced my father to retire and stop working, because he would have worked until the day he died. And she went out to Hawaii, because that was always her dream. And I never asked her why. It didn't matter. That was her dream. And she calls me up and says, "Ronnie, they have malasadas out here. I can't believe it." I said, "Mom, the governor of Hawaii is Kamara. A Kamashu or Kamara. They got a Portuguese governor?" I said, "Yeah, there's a whole thing of Portuguese." I said, "We're everywhere."
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. International.
It is an international thing. But, you were talking about the docks and everything like that, and Charlie Montero, who I worked with at Freestones, he was the maintenance guy there. He was one of the SO guys, the merchant marine guys. And yeah, it is. There's just this incredible deep history.
Yeah, even with the Ernestina.
Oh,
I mean,
my gosh, yeah. Are you kidding me?
all the immigrants that are transported back and forth, and
I don't know if they've ever done it, but I didn't see it, and then I saw her. I guess she got towed in, and she was wrapped up. You know how
Yep.
they wrap up the power, what people who are sailors
for the
call
winter.
power boats, stink pots. So it was shrink wrapped.
Yep.
And I'm saying, have they ever had an opening, like an opening party, like an unwrapping party?
They probably did.
Yeah,
they
because
probably did.
that would be very, very, very cool. But yeah, the Ernestina is, and I've sailed on her a couple of times.
Wow.
Yeah, I was lucky.
That is cool.
Chamber of Commerce, all that stuff like that. And but we have such a vibrant history. And I'm looking at this Cape Verdean Ultramarine Band Club, Ultramarine Band and Club. Everybody leaves the "and" out. For some reason, right?
It's now it's just band club.
It's absolutely phenomenal of the heritage of the Cape Verdeans in this area and coming into their own.
And that depicts it really well, of how the idea of the Adrian brought to life, of just how it transforms from how it began to where it's come to, and how it's developed into. So it's a lot of history, and they wanted to emphasize on if we were going to use any figures recognizable, that there had to be Cape Verdean, of Cape Verdean descent, and had passed away. So
yeah, you don't want to do what Hollywood used to do, where getting a Jewish guy to play, to use the term "quote unquote" Indian, or an Asian actor who was Japanese who was playing a Korean. Yeah, it was like it just.
it's like, why?
Yeah, why exactly? Again, okay, of course, in theater, you go. When I was living in Portugal, one of my friends would say, "You know what the problem is with America and Americans?" I'm like, "Oh, here it comes."
Right.
They're like, "You guys complicate everything."
It's true, man.
It's really, really simple. Last question, and it's kind of like looking into the crystal ball. Now, you've been around for quite a while, from the beginning of this, what used to be a beginning in the creative community, which is now we're like in full stride.
Yeah.
And everybody's always waiting for the wheels to fall off, because, it's happened so many times where this, and then poof, it died. And then, poof, it dies, right? Well, look, Third Eye ran that roller coaster thing, but it hung in there. What do you think the next big thing is going to be? Or what would you like it to be? If you can't be, I was going to say a fate Seder, a witch, and look into look into the future, what's your guess? What would you like it to be?
For the kids and the kids it's coming up in the elementary schools, the young adults, to be inspired by music and art. I mean, that alone, just those two elements, if you push those with starting at a young age, it will definitely make a huge impact, because we've seen the impact that it's done to young adults that have just been introduced to the art or music, and how they blossomed into this major figure and influencer. So it has its powers to do what it can do, but let's just start at a younger age, and we will definitely see it flourish before these kids are even teens, and see what it's just a brighter future for them and everyone else, I think.
Yeah, and for the naysayers who think, oh, you're grooming them for a life of rejection and blah, 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 because, there's no money in art.
And that's what they used to say.
Right.
And as to me, with someone that doesn't have that negative feedback, my parents supported me, and they always knew I had a talent, even though I was a knucklehead in school. They knew I was going somewhere. So it's a thank God for that, because a lot of kids back in the days didn't have that support to push art.
Exactly. And there's another thing. You don't have to be an artist but to appreciate it, because that's another thing. Some people have no appreciation of, they have no aesthetics. They have no, they're empty. They're shells. And but then there's another thing in the black community. My friend Henry in Detroit, who was the co-founder of the Detroit Fine Arts Breakfast Club, they've been going through a thing where they produced 6 national and international, I believe 6. The number could be low now. Artists out of Detroit. Okay, visual artists.
Nice.
Judy Bowman, when I first ran into her in Detroit, she was selling her work for like $275, $300. Her last sale that I know of within the last maybe 9 months was for $60,000.
Wow.
She's hung in the Smithsonian. Like, boom, went up.
Love it.
Doesn't happen to everybody. But what happened is, all of a sudden, there's a thing in the community that sports, entertainment, and now art. Art is seen as another way out of your life. So people just think, and they see people just like throwing crap on canvas and like, oh, this is art. And he's really kind of agitated and concerned about that. So I don't know where that's going to go. But on the good side, because there is a good side to it, if people believe that art can improve, their life, then that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah. I'm blessed for public art, because if it wasn't for public art, I would still be this probably unknown, unheard of artist that does this thing. But because of Superflat and how when I first heard about it,
right,
I was like intrigued. Oh, outdoor public art showcased. I'm all in.
I'd love to be able to do a podcast series. We're looking for underwriters for, and I don't even know what to title it. Urban art, street art. Again, it's got so many names on it, name tags. But starting off with Third Eye Blind, and then going into the Ugly Gallery, which kind of legitimized a lot of art, and how it's evolved down to where it is now. Because there's murals everywhere. And at one time, I remember in the Tierney administration, Mayor Tierney, that's all gang related, and and they didn't want to sit down and talk to the gangs. It's funny because they call them gangs here, but in other parts of the world, as you know, they call them clubs.
And groups.
Yeah. Oh, platforms.
Yeah.
There's another one, right? So there's been so much change, and all for the better. I am so glad that I met you. I'm so ticked off that this phone it shut off. The volume's off. I don't know what else to do except bury it in a can.
But I don't know if you know about that Steam the Streets mural that's on Kempton Street. It's at the back of the Carnegie Academy.
No, I haven't seen that.
That one is a very positive mural because they break it down, what the letters mean.
Yeah.
And now Ben Gilbar, which is the founder of Third Eye, he put together an actual app called Steam the Streets. Now, this app is amazing for any youth coming up that's just has a talent or has a focus on something and doesn't know if there's careers or jobs out there in that field. There are, and they break it down in detail on this app of just steering kids in the right direction and showing them examples and showing people of color that they can associate with that have reached these high success rates or success titles for their talent. So it's an amazing app, and I definitely
we got to get some representative to talk about that, or even like in that podcast series. It's 10-part podcast series.
Oh, okay.
It's got to be underwritten. And I was telling Jeff, are we ever going to be making any money for ourselves? Because, we pay our podcast hosts and so on and so forth, and, and other people, editors and such. But that would be wonderful. And there's just so much there. They're doing it in Detroit. Crazy historians, we have some in New Bedford, and I mean this in the best light. On a rainy day, they'll run around trying to find ghost signs, advertising signage painted on buildings, but they only show up on rainy days, right? In Detroit, there were so many murals that all of a sudden they're like, whoa, wait a minute. Somebody's got to record this stuff. And, we got that wall behind the Poor Farm that stuff gets slammed up and down. I mean, like, oh, come and see this. Hey, wait a minute, that wasn't there last night.
Yeah, what happened?
You know what I mean? We need to really document that stuff. Seriously document that. And in fact, they just opened up the Michigan Central Station. I don't get it. It's in Detroit. It's like the railroad station. I think the Fords built it. They just restored it. The place had been abandoned for years. It was like, but they left one section that had all this tagging and bombing. They left it as a tribute. I mean, they cleaned it up and so on and so forth, and they put it behind plexi so it wouldn't be. And from what I could see in the videos and stuff, it's like, that is so cool.
That is cool. Capturing a piece of its history.
Exactly, because that is history. Just like Kilroy was here, from World War II, the guy with the big nose and stuff like that. So anyway, Eden, I'm so excited that you've. It was a good thing that Maya's voice went out on her, and I'm so glad that you're here and I got to meet you. And with that in mind, folks, I just want to wrap up this latest episode of the Artist Index. The Artist Index? No, that's not it. This South Coast Artists Podcast. And I've got to settle down. I haven't even had coffee yet. So be good to each other out there. Go outside and see some art. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
We'll see you next week for another episode of the South Coast Artist Index podcast. To learn more about the South Coast Artist Index, visit theartistindex.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.